welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to really get into something fascinating. How really small changes, things you might barely notice, can actually stack up and lead to some, well, pretty remarkable results in your life.
That's right. We're looking at a source that's all about the science and, maybe more importantly, the practice of habits.
And our mission here is basically to pull out the core ideas, how to build the good habits, maybe break some bad ones, find those practical takeaways you can actually use.
Exactly. Think of it like a practical guide drawn from this material.
And a great place to start is actually with a story from the author himself. It's pretty intense. He talks about recovering from this just awful baseball bat injury in high school.
Yeah, I remember reading that. The bat slipped, hit him right between the eyes.
Right in the face, broke his nose, fractured his skull, shattered eye sockets. He was even in a coma for a bit. Just devastating.
Wow. And he had to basically rebuild everything, right? Including his baseball career.
Totally. He went from getting cut from the varsity team after the injury to becoming a top athlete at his college, Denison University. Academic honors, too.
That's incredible. And not just sports, right? He built this whole writing and business career afterward.
Yeah, became this, leading voice on habits, huge online following, successful business, all starting from feeling like he didn't really belong.
And the point he makes, the really crucial part, is that this whole turnaround wasn't some big overnight thing. It was all down to these small, consistent habits he built.
It really backs up that idea he mentions, like to write a great book, you must first become the book. He kind of had to live it.
He really did. It's a perfect setup for this core idea, the surprising power of tiny improvements.
Okay, let's dig into that. Because it does sound, well, almost too simple, doesn't it? We always think we need these massive actions for big changes.
Right. We want the magic bullet. Yeah. But this is all about the aggregation of marginal gains. And the best example is probably Dave Brailsford and the British cycling team.
Oh, yeah. Their track record before him was, well, not great.
Not great is putting it mildly. Like 1 Olympic gold in a century, 0 Tour de France wins in 110 years. Bike companies literally didn't want to sell them bikes because they thought it hurt their brand.
They were basically, irrelevant on the world stage.
So Brailsford comes in with this completely different approach. Forget the giant leap. Instead, let's look at everything, every tiny detail involved in riding a bike.
Like the seat comfort, the massage gel, even how the mechanics wash their hands.
Exactly. Pillow types for better sleep, testing fabrics and wind tunnels, everything. And the goal wasn't perfection, just improve each tiny thing by 1%.
Just 1%. It sounds so small.
But the math, when you compound it, that's where it gets kind of mind-blowing. Get 1% better each day for a year.
You end up way more than just 365% better.
Oh, yeah. You're nearly 37 times better. 37.
Wow.
But the flip side is just as powerful, maybe more scary. Get 1% worse each day. Pretty much. It really shows how those tiny choices, the little habits you barely think about, they compound like crazy over time, good or bad.
So connecting that to us, to you listening, what does that actually mean day to day?
It means your results, how much money you have, your health, how messy or clean your place is. Those are all just lagging measures. They reflect what you've been doing repeatedly.
And wire what you repeat.
You got it. So the direction you're heading, that daily trajectory your habits create, that's way more important than your results right now. Your tiny daily choices are literally sculpting your future self.
Okay, but here's the thing that gets everyone, myself included. You start making these 1% changes, you're doing the work, and for a while, it feels like absolutely nothing is happening.
Oh, totally. That frustration is real. This source calls it the plateau of latent potential.
Latent potential, okay.
Yeah. We expect progress to be this nice, steady, upward line, right? But reality is more like flat, 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 then whoosh, it shoots up like a hockey stick.
Right, like you're putting in all this effort but seeing 0 results.
Think about heating an ice cube. You take it from, say, 25 degrees Fahrenheit up to 31. You're adding heat, putting energy in.
But it's still just a block of ice. Nothing looks different.
Exactly. You feel like the effort is wasted. But it's not. It's being stored. It's building up potential energy unseen.
Until you hit that critical threshold.
Precisely. Like 32 degrees for the ice. Suddenly all that stored energy kicks in and boom, it melts. The change happens seemingly all at once.
And that's why breakthroughs often look like overnight success. to people on the outside.
They see the melt, the earthquake, the big result. They don't see the years of tiny temperature increases or the slow buildup of geological pressure beforehand. You just have to trust the process during that plateau phase.
Okay, so understanding that progress isn't always linear or visible right away. That leads nicely into challenging how we usually think about making changes, which is, setting big goals.
Yeah, this material really pushes back on that whole goal-obsessed culture. It highlights some key problems with putting goals first.
Like what?
Well, first off, winners and losers often have the exact same goals. Think about the Olympics, everyone wants gold. Having the goal isn't the differentiator.
Good point. So the goal itself isn't what makes the winner win.
Right. And second, achieving a goal is often just temporary. Like, you set a goal to clean your messy room, you do it, goal achieved, room's clean.
For maybe a day, if you're lucky.
Exactly. If you don't change the system, the habits that led to the mess in the first place, you'll just end up back there again. Goals treat the symptom, not the cause.
So you need to fix the inputs, the system, to get lasting change in the outputs.
Precisely. And maybe the most profound issue with goals is how they can mess with your happiness.
How so?
Because there's this implicit idea, once I reach my goal, then I'll finally be happy. You're constantly delaying satisfaction.
Always chasing the next milestone.
Yeah, and it sets up this binary. Either you achieve the goal and you're a success for that moment, or you fall short and you're a failure. There's no lasting contentment in the process.
So the alternative being pushed here is focus on the system instead.
Yes. Fall in love with the process, the daily practice. The system is something you can run successfully every day, regardless of whether you hit some arbitrary target on that specific day.
You get satisfaction from doing the thing, from running the system.
Right. And success can then emerge in ways you didn't even anticipate because you're not rigidly fixed on one specific outcome. You're just consistently doing the work.
Okay, shifting from outcomes or goals to the inputs, the systems. That makes a lot of sense. But then the source goes even deeper, right? It says the real driver behind the systems is our identity.
This is where it gets really interesting, I think. It talks about 3 layers of change. You've got changing your outcomes, what you get, changing your process, what you do, and the deepest level, changing your identity, what you believe about yourself.
And the argument is the most powerful, lasting change comes from focusing on that identity level, not just the results of the actions.
Exactly. Focus on who you wish to become, because ultimately your identity emerges from your habits. Every action you take is like casting a vote for the type of person you want to be.
So if I go for a run, even a short one, I'm casting a vote for I'm a runner.
Precisely. If you write one sentence, you're voting for I'm a writer. If you practice an instrument for 5 minutes, you're voting for I'm a musician. These small actions build up evidence for your desired identity.
And there's a feedback loop too, right? The more pride you take in being that type of person,
The more motivated you are to stick with the habits that reinforce that identity. Think about people who are proud of their strong arms. They don't skip workouts. People proud of their well-kept garden find joy in the tending habits.
So true behavior change isn't just about behavior, it's about identity change. Changing the story you tell yourself.
That's the core idea. It's about becoming the type of person who does that thing naturally. The outcome is almost secondary to reinforcing who you are.
Okay, so how does this actually work? How do these identity-shaping habits form? The material lays out a kind of scientific model, right? A 4-step loop.
Yep, the foundation of habit formation. Cue, craving, response, reward.
Let's break those down. What's the cue?
The cue is the trigger. It's some piece of information, a sight, a sound, a feeling, a location that predicts a reward is nearby. Could be seeing food, hearing your phone buzz, feeling stressed. Your brain is constantly scanning for these cues.
Okay, cue triggers something. Then comes the craving.
Right. The craving is the motivation, the desire that arises because of the cue. It's not usually craving for the habit itself, but for the change in state the habit provides. You don't crave smoking. You crave the feeling of relief from stress. You don't crave scrolling Instagram. You crave relief from boredom or the hit of connection.
It's the feeling you're after.
Yeah.
Which leads to the response.
The response is the actual habit, the action or thought you perform. Whether you actually do it depends on how strong that craving is and, crucially, how much friction or effort is involved. Your ability plays a role, too, of course.
And finally, the reward seals the deal.
The reward. This satisfies the craving, gives you that temporary pleasure or relief, but it does something else vital. It teaches your brain. It tells your brain, hey, that action, that worked. Remember it for next time you see that cue. It closes the loop.
So cue, craving, response, reward, and that loop just keeps running.
Constantly. And with each repetition, it becomes faster, more automatic, more ingrained. That's the whole point of habits. They free up your mental energy by automating behavior.
Which is great, saves brain power.
Mm,
But there's a downside to that automaticity.
big time. When habits become truly automatic, they sink below conscious awareness. You can fall into old patterns, even unhelpful or unwanted ones, without even realizing you're doing it.
Like those examples.
Yeah.
The teacher asking adults if they wash their hands, or the retired lifeguard yelling, walk at the pool.
Exactly. The cue triggers the response automatically, bypassing conscious thought. The habit runs itself.
Which highlights why awareness is so critical for change. That Carl Jung quote.
Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Powerful stuff.
Yeah, it really nails it. You don't need to be aware of the cue for the habit to start, but you absolutely need awareness if you want to change it.
Could have said it better.
Okay, so we have the loop. We understand identity and systems.
Yeah.
How do we actually use this? How do we build good habits, break bad ones? This brings us to the 4 laws of behavior change.
Right. This is the practical framework. 4 simple laws that map onto those 4 steps of the habit loop, designed to make change easier.
Let's start with law number 1. Make it obvious. This tackles the cue stage, right?
Exactly. Make the cues for your good habits unmissable and make the cues for your bad habits invisible. But first, you need awareness.
How do you build that awareness?
One simple way is the habits scorecard. Just write down your daily habits, no judgment, just list them. It's often really surprising what you actually do automatically.
Just seeing it on paper makes it conscious.
It does. Another technique, maybe a bit more active, is pointing and calling. Like those Japanese train conductors, they literally point at a signal and say aloud, "Signal is green." It forces a non-conscious check into conscious awareness.
You could try that with your own habits. Like saying out loud, I am now picking up my phone to check social media for no reason.
Precisely. It sounds a bit silly, but it interrupts the automatic script. Okay, so once you're aware, you make the good cues obvious. Implementation intentions are great for this.
That's the specific plan.
Yeah, the formula. I will behavior at time and location. So not just I'll exercise more, but I will do 20 push-ups at 7 a.m. in my living room. It gives the habit a concrete time and place in your life, makes it harder to forget or ignore.
And it helps you say no to other things that might pop up then.
Definitely. Then there's habit stacking.
Using a habit you already have as the trigger for the new one.
You got it. After current habit, I will new habit. So after I pour my morning coffee, I will meditate for 1 minute. Or after I take off my work shoes, I will immediately change into my workout clothes.
It hooks the new habit onto an existing pathway in your brain. Like the Diderot effect, but for habits.
Yeah, exactly. Just be sure to pick a reliable current habit that occurs at the right time and place for the new one.
And a huge part of making cues obvious is designing your environment.
Oh, massively important. Your environment is constantly sending you cues, shaping your behavior whether you realize it or not. Think about how supermarkets are designed: end caps, eye-level shelves.
They make certain products really obvious and easy to grab.
We need to do that for ourselves. Be the architect of your environment. Want to drink more water? Fill up bottles and leave them everywhere you look. Want to practice guitar? Keep it out on a stand, not hidden in the case. Put your vitamins next to your toothbrush.
Make the cue for the good habit the most visible thing.
Make it the path of least resistance, simply because it's right there. And remember, context is king. Habits get tied to the whole environment, the room, the time, the people around you.
Like the insomniac example, associating the bed only with sleep, not tossing and turning.
Exactly. Which leads to a powerful strategy. Changing your environment can sometimes be the easiest way to change a habit. New place, new cues.
Break the old association.
Even if you can't move, you can try redefining spaces. One space, one use. Don't eat at your work desk. Don't scroll social media in bed. Try to give each context a primary purpose. It clarifies the cues.
It makes sense. And this ties into self-control too, right? It's not just about willpower.
Not at all. The source argues that disciplined people are often just better at structuring their environments to avoid needing heroic willpower. They make temptation less visible.
Like that Vietnam War heroin study. Addiction rates plummeted when soldiers came home away from the environmental cues of the war zone.
It showed how much context drives behavior. So resisting temptation constantly is exhausting and often fails long term. It's easier to just remove the cue.
Cut bad habits off at the source. Make the cue invisible. Put the cookies on the top shelf. Hide the remote, turn off notifications.
Exactly. Reduce exposure. And one last point on cues. Supernormal stimuli. Modern life bombards us with exaggerated cues.
Like junk food engineered to be hyper-palatable or social media designed for maximum engagement.
Yeah, these things hijack our natural reward pathways because they're more intense, more novel, more attractive than anything our ancestors encountered. They make certain cues incredibly hard to ignore. Understanding that helps explain why some modern habits are so sticky.
Okay, law 1, make it obvious. Got
Yeah.
it. Law 2 is make it attractive. This is about the craving stage.
Yes. We're more likely to act when we anticipate a positive feeling. Habits are essentially dopamine-driven feedback loops. The more attractive, the more dopamine, the more likely we are to repeat it.
And the key insight about dopamine here is it's more about the anticipation than the reward itself.
That's the fascinating part. The brain releases more dopamine in anticipation of a reward than when you actually get it. Think about the excitement before a vacation, sometimes being better than the vacation itself. Our brains are wired more for wanting than for liking.
Okay, so how do we leverage that wanting to make good habits more attractive?
Temptation bundling is a brilliant strategy. You pair something you want to do with something you need to do.
Like that student who hacked his exercise bike to only play Netflix if he was pedaling.
Exactly. He bundled the want Netflix with the need exercise. The formula is simple. After current habit, I will habit I need. After habit I need, I will habit I want.
So after I finish work emails, need, I will listen to my favorite podcast while going for a walk. Want plus need.
Perfect. The anticipation of the want makes the need more appealing. Another huge factor in attractiveness is social norms.
Right, we're social creatures. We want to fit in.
Deeply. We unconsciously imitate the habits of three groups: the close, family, friends; the many, our tribe, the majority; and the powerful, those with status we admire. Fitting in feels attractive. Being an outcast feels dangerous and unattractive.
So joining a group where your desired behavior is the norm, like a running club if you want to run, or a book club if you want to read more, that makes the habit more attractive.
Absolutely. Surround yourself with people whose habits you want to emulate. The culture shapes your expectations of what's normal and desirable.
Makes sense. And the last part of making it attractive involves reframing how we think about the craving itself.
Yeah, it's about understanding that cravings are based on predictions. How you interpret a cue determines whether you feel a craving.
Like seeing a cigarette. One person predicts relief and craves it. Another predicts disgust and is repulsed. Same cue, different prediction.
Exactly. The actual cause of the habit isn't the cue, it's the prediction your brain makes about what that cue means. You can change the habit by changing the prediction.
Like Alan Carr's method for smoking.
Right. He systematically reframes smoking not as a pleasure you're giving up, but as something that destroys nerves, causes bad breath, controls you. He makes the associations, the predictions, deeply unattractive.
Okay, law 2, make it attractive. Law 3 is make it easy. This targets the response part of the loop.
This is all about reducing friction and focusing on action over just motion or planning. Remember the ceramics class example?
Yeah, the group graded on quantity made better pots than the group graded on quality.
Because they got tons of practice. They weren't paralyzed by perfectionism, they just did it over and over. Habits form based on frequency, not duration or intensity at first. Every repetition strengthens the neural pathway.
Neurons that fire together, wire together, like those London taxi drivers' brains physically changing.
Exactly. Repetition builds automaticity, and human nature follows the law of least effort. We are fundamentally wired to conserve energy. We gravitate towards the easiest option.
So the behaviors that fill our day are usually the ones that require the least effort.
Pretty much. So to build good habits, you have to make them the path of least resistance. Reduce the friction.
Make it easier to do the right thing than the wrong thing.
Environment design helps again. A gym on your commute is less friction than one across town. Pre-chopped vegetables reduce the friction of cooking. Companies are masters of this, simplifying steps, one-click ordering.
So we need to do that for ourselves. Like addition by subtraction, removing steps.
Yes, and also priming the environment. Setting up your space for the next action, like resetting the room before you leave it.
Laying out workout clothes the night before. Putting the book you want to read on your pillow.
Making the next action incredibly easy to start. These are what the source calls decisive moments. Small choices that dictate where your time and energy go next. Choosing to put on running shoes instead of grabbing the remote. The habit is the entry point, not the finish line.
And the killer app for making things easy, especially new habits.
The 2-minute rule. Simple but powerful. When you start a new habit, it should take less than 2 minutes to do.
Read one page, do one push-up, take out the yoga mat.
Exactly. It sounds trivial, but it's about mastering the art of showing up. Ritualize the first 2 minutes. Make starting effortless. You can scale up later using habit shaping. Start with one push-up, then 5, then 10, but master the start first.
And if you're struggling, just scale back down to the 2 minutes. It's always better than 0.
Always. It still casts a vote for your identity.
Okay, Law 3. Make it easy. That brings us to the final one, Law 4. Make it satisfying. This connects to the reward.
Right. We repeat what feels good. The problem is our brains evolved in an immediate return environment. Eat berry, feel good now, see lion, run now. But we live in a delayed return environment.
Where the rewards for good habits, exercise, saving, learning, are often far off in the future.
While the rewards for bad habits, junk food, procrastination, spending are often immediate, the feelings are mismatched with the long-term outcomes.
So the cardinal rule of behavior change is, what is immediately rewarded gets repeated. What is immediately punished gets avoided.
Yes. So the trick is to find ways to inject some immediate satisfaction into your good habits, even small things.
Like the hand washing example in Pakistan. Providing better soap made the act itself more pleasant.
Exactly. The nice smell and lather provided an immediate sensory reward, which made the habit stick, leading to huge health benefits. It wasn't just about knowing it was good. It had to feel good in the moment.
So find ways to add a little immediate pleasure. And visual progress helps here too, right? Habit tracking.
Oh, hugely. Marking an X on a calendar, filling a progress bar. These things are inherently satisfying. They provide immediate visual proof that you're making progress.
It makes the progress tangible right now.
Yeah.
And it creates motivation.
Yeah.
You don't want to break the chain.
Exactly. It's evidence you're becoming the person you want to be. Each X is a small win, a little hit of satisfaction.
But what happens if you do break the chain? You miss a day.
The key rule here is never miss twice. 1 missed day is an anomaly. 2 missed days is the start of a new, unwanted habit. Perfection is impossible. Just get back on track with the next opportunity.
Don't let one slip-up derail everything. Avoid that all-or-nothing mindset.
Right. Even if you only do the 2-minute version, just show up. Reaffirm the identity. And make sure you're tracking the right things. Sometimes focusing on non-scale victories for weight loss, for example, provides more consistent satisfaction than just the number on the scale.
Okay, so make good habits satisfying. And the flip side for bad habits, the inversion of Law 4.
Make it unsatisfying. Make bad habits immediately painful or unpleasant. Pain is a very effective teacher. The more immediate the consequence, the faster we learn not to do that thing again.
How do you create that immediate dissatisfaction? Willpower alone often isn't enough.
An accountability partner is a great way. We hate letting other people down. Knowing someone else is checking on you or will know if you failed adds an immediate social cost to inaction.
It makes the potential failure more painful now.
Exactly. And a habit contract takes that a step further. You formalize the agreement and the penalty for breaking it, makes the stakes real and often public.
Like Brian Harris promising to pay his trainer and dress up if he didn't track his food. Signing it with his wife and trainer made it binding.
It adds that social pressure and immediate consequence. It signals you're serious. Even just knowing someone is watching can be enough.
You can also automate the unsatisfying. Right. Use technology against yourself.
Yeah, like the author having his assistant change his social media passwords. Made logging in a hassle, immediately unsatisfying. Locking yourself out of distracting apps during work hours. Making the bad habit difficult and annoying can reveal your motivation for better things because the easy escape is blocked.
It forces you to choose something more meaningful.
When the path of least resistance is unsatisfying, you look for other paths.
So we've got the core ideas, small wins, plateaus, systems, identity, and the 4 laws. The source also briefly touches on some more advanced tactics for really optimizing things.
Right, like the role of talent and genes. The idea isn't that genes lock you into a destiny, but they do influence your areas of opportunity. Habits tend to feel more satisfying, easier, in areas where you have some natural inclination.
So it's about playing a game where the odds are in your favor, aligning your efforts with your predispositions.
Pretty much. Finding the right habits might involve some exploration. What feels like fun to you but work to others? What do you learn quickly? What holds your focus? Where do you feel authentic? Combine your unique skills. Focus on your potential, not someone else's. Work hard on the things that come easier to you.
Then there's the Goldilocks rule for motivation.
Crucial for sticking with things long term. We stay motivated when we're working on tasks that are right at the edge of our current abilities. Not too hard leads to frustration, not too easy leads to boredom.
Just manageable difficulty keeps you engaged.
Like Steve Martin, testing jokes keeps some surefire hits, add some new risky ones. Boredom is the enemy of progress. Mastery requires finding joy, or at least tolerance, in the repetition. Professionals stick to the schedule even when motivation dips.
And the final advanced bit, reflection and review.
Habits create automaticity, which is good for efficiency, but the downside is you can become mindless, and performance can subtly decline. Mastery needs both automatic habits and periods of deliberate practice, conscious review, and refinement.
Like athletes analyzing game film or keeping a decision journal, regularly checking in on your systems to see what's working and what needs adjusting.
And a related point. Avoid tying your entire identity to one specific role, like athlete or CEO. If that role changes, it can cause an identity crisis. Better to define yourself by broader, more flexible qualities like disciplined, resilient, curious.
Okay, pulling this all together, there's a really strong undercurrent about the role of feelings and emotions driving all this, isn't there?
Absolutely. It comes back to that idea, feelings drive behavior. The craving, that feeling of wanting to change your state, comes before the response. We might rationalize afterwards, but emotion comes first. Habits stick because they feel attractive or satisfying on some level, not always because they're logical.
Appealing to emotion is often more effective.
And that feeling of wanting something different, that dissatisfaction or suffering, is actually what drives progress. Without craving, there's no motivation to change. Your actions ultimately reveal what you truly desire.
Which leads to that simple equation. Satisfaction,
Yeah.
liking, wanting.
Right. If your wanting always outstrips your liking, you'll be perpetually unsatisfied. It's about managing expectations and desires, not just accumulating more. The pain of failure often comes from the height of the expectation. It all comes back to those core feelings. Wanting gets you started, liking keeps you going.
Wow. This has been a really thorough look at how these principles work. Really insightful stuff.
It really hammers home that it's the tiny, consistent changes built into a smart system focused on identity and guided by making things obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. That's the path, not giant leaps.
Build the system, become the person, and the results tend to follow.
Exactly.
And maybe the thought to really sit with from all this is just how fundamental those emotional drivers, that raw wanting and eventual liking or satisfaction, are to everything we do habitually. Understanding that deep connection between your desires, your feelings, and your daily actions, that could really change how you approach building the life you want, couldn't it? Something to definitely think about as you make those small choices today.